Welcome everyone to our community of practice gathering. Thank you so much for Renate for organizing with Dave Sinclair to come and present to us today. I met Dave when he came on my 5D trauma-informed coaching program on the pilot, and he made such a fantastic contribution to the learning of everyone on that program, bringing in modalities that he studied, his IFS and Alethea training, his work in recovery, his corporate work. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, Dave, and how you've been applying your insights. I know that you've come up with some very creative ways of using the Enneagram. And so looking forward to hearing from you. So I'm going to hand over to you to do a presencing exercise with us.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Renata. Thanks to everyone here for just showing up. And just for a moment here, what I've been doing a lot more lately, and I'd like to do here, is I'd like to just take a moment, just to light a candle, just to bring a little ceremony to our space, just to signify us being here. Thank you, Ingrid. And what this candle represents is you don't need to take anything with you that you don't want to after this session. It's just here. It can hold whatever happens in the session. It's here also just to signify the shared flame that we all have. Sometimes our flames are bright. Sometimes they're a little lighter. But in this moment, we can just kind of connect and just realize maybe all that's needed is a little bit more contact. And with that, a little presencing exercise. This one was demonstrated to me by a wonderful man named Guthrie Sehan, who I started my IFS journey with some time ago now. But it also kind of ties really closely into what we're going to look at today. So without kind of getting too much further into it, I just invite you to take a posture, whatever posture feels kind of supportive to you. Maybe it's sitting down. Maybe it's noticing how you're contacting your chair. Maybe you're feeling your feet on the ground. And wherever you are, I just invite you just to take a quick look around. Maybe look underneath your chair, around, all over. And just make sure in this moment that you're okay. Maybe even asking yourself, in this moment, am I okay? And just really listening to that answer. And then if you want, you can close your eyes. I'm going to do it actually right now. And I'm just going to demonstrate this. And I just invite you just to notice what you notice as I ask these questions to myself. I'm just going to check in. I feel called just to check in with my heart right now. What does my heart need right now? And actually, I can feel my heart right now. There's a little flutter. And my heart just needs a little breath right now. A little reassurance from me that it's okay, that everyone on this screen are friends. And I just needed to contact that part of me that was a little nervous right now. And I'm just kind of curious for you inside your heart. What's here that needs a little contact right now? And if it works, you can even put your hand on your heart. How about your belly? What do you notice there? I notice kind of a stillness in my belly right now. How about you? And even your head. You can put your hands on your head if you want. Just noticing what's there. What might want my contact right now? I notice a smile on my face, some excitement to be here with you all. How about you? And if it works for you, just taking your hands, putting them on your lap. And just noticing your breath overall. Is there anything else that might just need a little bit more contact from you before we enter into our space today? Just taking a few breaths here, noticing your in breath and your out breath. Maybe even noticing what was that like just to have a little contact with yourself. Yeah. And an invitation for today, just mindfully. Can you just be with whatever's here just for a moment, whatever comes up? Knowing that if at any point during today there's a little bit much for you, you can take a pause, you can take a look around, you can feel your presence and be with whatever's here. Yeah. And an invitation to be gentle with yourself today. No need to go further than the parts of you want to go. Yeah. And when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, maybe just taking that breath right now, and gently coming back to the here and now, and maybe just making contact with someone else on the screen. Noticing what you notice as you make contact. First with yourself and now with the others. Yeah. And that's our session for today. I kid. So I'm just going to go through some things. I have this to be as interactive as possible. Renata, I think I'm going to go over to you. I think there's a little breakout session to start with, and then we come back into it. Great. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So we're going to have, we've got 3 and 4 in a room. So just, it's a meet and greet, say hello, get to know each other. Do you want to give a prompt, Ing, or shall we just leave it open to chat?
I think a prompt is, what do you love most about the Enneagram?
Cool. So there's 6 minutes with a minute to come back. So it's 7 minutes. So that's 2 minutes or less each, a little bit less in the rooms of 4. So enjoy your chats, and I will see you back in 7 minutes. Anybody want to share anything that coming out of your quick breakout room chats, your meet and greets?
But we had Dave in our room, and I thought it was lovely because I've never been in the room with the presenter before, and I feel like very connected now, and even more excited about learning more from Dave. So that was quite a surprise for me.
Yes, I forgot to make him co-host, so I thought he'd be happy to be in a room with everybody else. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Charmy.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All right. So Dave, thank you. And over to you. We are in your hands.
Perfect. So I have some slides we'll get into later on. I'll try to kind of toggle between the slides. Again, this is meant to be as interactive as possible. We'll get as far into the slides or not, as it doesn't matter. We'll just get where we kind of get with it. There's a certain point I'd like to get to, so I might pace things slightly differently, or I might skip some stuff. But I also have at the end of the presentation, if you're interested in what we're talking about here today, I did make available kind of like a take-home exercise that you can have. We'll put that link into the post after. All I'm asking is for your email. Yes, I'm going to spam you, not very much, but I will add you to the mailing list where I do send some stuff out from time to time. I have to, of course, it's a way to kind of reach the world a little bit more, but more on that later. So who am I? Already had the intro, but in a more general sense, I am here. And who is here? I'm the witness, WITHNESS. I'm the witness. I'm with what's here. And at the same time, I'm also blocked from what's here by parts of me that might jump up, parts that might want to perform, parts of me that might want to contact, parts of me that want to help or reach you in some way, parts of me that want to control the speed of all this. So I am both here and blocked at any given time. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. Now, the withness, what's here, you can almost imagine that as the blue sky. Presence. And even just slowing down into that, that's that slow pause. That's what's here when all the clouds of what I think I have to be aren't popping around. Cool? So what are we going to look at today? We will look at a few different things, but to set the stage, I want to talk about something. We're not going to get too deep into this concept, but it's an important concept to set the stage. So right off the bat, let's do an imaginal exercise. Who's up for that? Some of us kind of visualize things. Some of us can kind of feel stuff, but I'm just going to imagine yourself. Imagine for a moment, you are you. I'm Dave Co. Judy's Judy Co. Renata's Renata Co. We are a business in ourselves. But this business that we are, this you co that we are, we're in the business of just lifing. Okay? And inside of you co, you can close your eyes, you can keep them open, but you can imagine inside of you co, there's a big boardroom. Okay? And in this boardroom, there's a big boardroom table. And around this boardroom table are a whole bunch of different department heads. There's a department of well-being, there's a department of hobbies, there's a department of learning, there's a department of Enneagram, maybe, who knows? But there's all these different departments around a boardroom table. So just imagine that. And also imagine for any boardroom, it also needs a leader. Cool? Well, guess who that leader is? It's you. You're the CEO of UCO. And the CEO of UCO, well, they could show up pretty much any way. The question is, how are you showing up right now for your own internal boardroom? So a little experience, okay? Again, close your eyes for this one if it works, if that's available for you, and paint that picture. Paint that picture of a boardroom. And this time, rather than being it, you're just going to watch it like a movie, okay? And imagine there's this boardroom, and in walks the CEO. Around the table are all these department heads. They're talking about kind of what's going on. There's a little stress because there's a lot of going on in the different departments. You know, maybe the Department of Health is saying, hey, what's going on here? How come we're not spending more time with us? The Department of Work is, wow, we got all this work to do. And the CEO walks in, slams his hand on the table and starts yelling at all the different department heads. Why won't you do this? What the hell's going on there? Just notice, what's that like? What do you feel like in your body just as I describe that? How is that? So just take a moment, maybe shake your arms, let that go. Okay? Let that one go. And then paint the picture again. You're watching the movie, okay? All the different departments, they're basically still arguing. They're still kind of like, hey, you know what? Department of Health is still kind of has some demands, work has some demands, all this stuff. But this time in walks a different CEO. The CEO just kind of quietly walks in, sits down, and just asks everyone, hey, what's going on? I see there's some struggle here right now. Let me know what's going on. Let's have a little talk. What do you notice there? Can you feel the difference between the CEO walked in and just started demanding and the one that walked in a little quieter? Really curious, but engaged, listening to everyone, but able to make a tough call too as well. Have you ever worked in a workplace like the two different ones? What was that like? And I'm just kind of curious here, opening it up to the group, question and answer, you know, just kind of a little inquiry here. What was that like for you? What did you notice? Yeah, Charmin.
Yeah, very different emotions, you know, when the CEO was very tough, and I felt like a lot of anger coming up and wanting to resist and argue. And when the CEO was very empathetic, it softened me, and I thought, oh, and something opened in me. So two very different experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Who else? Another voice.
Nyla.
Yes, I loved it when the second CEO came and my whole body relaxed.
Whole body. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt my shoulders, everything completely relaxed.
Yeah. One
Thank
more.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Judy.
As knowing me, Dave, you can probably imagine I had a very different boardroom. I was outside on a ski slope and we were all kind of like jumbling around. Some people were better at that and some people were worse. We were all trying to kind of stay together as a group, but so the first CEO came in kind of screaming, but was going like super fast and like shot past everybody. We were like, well, there he goes. Don't worry, he'll be back. And then the next one came over and was much more like stopped and was like, hey, what's going on here? Because, one of us was down, right? And somebody else was trying to get their ski that was up the hill and everyone kind of turned to that. So we had Billy fell over and so there was sort of this like almost like reporting to the parent, like, here's what's going on. And they just sort of say, oh, wow. And I noticed that so-and-so is doing a great job of getting the ski. And so there was this scene that played out for me.
Yeah, thanks for that. I love that too as well. Some people use, I haven't heard the ski hill one. That's great. Some people have used locker rooms, stuff like that. But yeah, how do you organize? How do you be with stuff? And just feeling the difference. Now, that one CEO showed up really strong and angry. But another way a CEO could show up is maybe checked out, coming into the room, not even responding, pushing themselves away. Another CEO might jump into the room and be overly enthusiastic, trying to jump in. One might try to jump in and help everybody else. But in one case, the first one was very reactive, right, to what was there. The second one, much more responsive. What's up with that? And sometimes our CEO will show up at the department of work one way, but the department of our relationship another way. What's going on? Anybody ever experienced that? Show of hands. Yeah. Let's go a little further. Same challenge. The boardroom was the same. Life is kind of going on, but the CEO shows up different. So what's up with that? So I'm going to basically share some slides now. We'll go through some stuff, and that's what we're going to tease into today. There's the idea of UCO. That's how I work with a lot of my clients, depending on what their metaphor is, helping them take a look at the horizontal aspects of their life, what's going on. I call them horizontal aspects, what all the different kind of aspects of their life is, what's going on. But more importantly, what's going on inside or around the CEO that causes them to maybe react a little bit more. And that's really where we blend in kind of the parts work. And that's also where I've got a fun way to bring the Enneagram into as well. Cool. And I just want to say this, I'm going to talk to the part of me that's like, hey, there's a lot of people with a lot of chops, with a lot of knowledge on the call here. I am not an Enneagram expert. I'm not an expert at anything, to be honest with you. I'm a generalist, but my pattern 4, when I let it kind of shine, it likes to find really unique and novel ways to kind of present things. So that's what I'm trying to do here. And I'm really presenting this stuff that I'm presenting here for the first time to a little bigger group. I presented this to a lot of people, kind of a lot of my clients. So I am very excited. And at the same time, there are parts of me that are a little reactive and a little nervous about it. So as I go through this, I'll be modeling just being with myself as we go through this. Cool? Thumbs up. Ready to go on? Does anybody or any of your parts need anything before we move on? No? And feel free, if you need to get up, if you need to move around, if you need to do whatever works for your system, feel free to do that. Throw yourself on, off camera, do whatever. Cool? So I am going to slideshow. Okay, let's do this. Share screen. Just let me know when you can see the screen. Okay. Slideshow from current slide. Look at that. Isn't that dramatic? I love it. So today what we're going to be taking a look at, I'm just going to move this out of the way here, is unfolding the CEO of UCO's EgoDragons. Unfolding, this will all become clearer as we move on here. We've got a little image here, a little teaser, okay? we'll get into this image a lot more in a little bit. And of course, we're all pretty familiar with this little image here, aren't we? Anybody not familiar with the Enneagram here? We'll talk about it a little bit too as well, but this mostly won't be an Enneagram exercise, or it won't be about learning about the Enneagram. Let's be learning more about how I'm kind of using it. So jumping in here a little bit further, EgoDragons. I've used that name just a little bit. Unfolding the CEO's Ego Dragon. What's an Ego Dragon? I'm just going to move my screen over here. And if anybody has a question, you might have to pop your hand up, throw it in the chat, whatever works for you. I won't monitor the chat, but Renate and Ingrid, if you guys can monitor the chat or whatever, that would be great. And there'll be some spots here where there's some links. I think Renate's got some stuff where she'll pop it into the chat too as well, or we'll put it in at the end. But Ego Dragons are ultimately this unique, again, there's a big part of me that needs to be seen as unique, right? I honor that part. I love that part of me. A unique way to explore parts and the Enneagram. And I really use this as kind of a start point for clients. I am trained in the IEQ-9 tool. I use that quite a bit. I use that with all my clients. I have that in the background as I'm working with them. I also, of course, send the report to them, but I do use the EgoDragons as kind of more of an intro way, just a start point to do it. I found that, there's so much in the IEQ-9 report, it's almost overwhelming. It is quite often overwhelming. And it talks about the one main pattern typically, but how about all these other patterns that are alive and inside of us? And that's what I kind of struggled with, is what's an interesting way to kind of just talk about that so that we can see ourselves even more as well as others. So going on a little bit more, what are the parts of the CEO that may jump up when an outside threat is perceived at UCO? So again, coming back to that UCO, coming back to that idea of life, when an outside threat comes up, quite often we might become reactive, maybe not in all situations, but when we do become reactive, maybe it's because an ego dragon, a part of us, has become a little bit more activated. And these ego dragons, the way I took a look at them, are protective parts. If you have a little bit of a background in internal family systems or Aletheia, we're going to talk just quickly about that, just to give a little bit of a parts 101, and then kind of get into this a little bit more. And the protective parts that I talk about that relate to the Enneagram are the 9 key ego dragons, I call them, 9 kind of constellations of parts that can show up and show up in different ways. I do like the idea of trifix theory in terms of, when push comes to shove in one aspect of my life, I may think, act, and feel a certain way. I think that does kind of help me at least make a little bit more sense of it. So jumping in a little bit further, what leads to ego dragons? What makes them want to jump in and protect us? Is this tracking so far? Yeah. There'll be some spots here to jump in here too. Yeah. So I put together a very simplified graphic trying to explain what goes on. In life, there's pain, right? Something happens, especially when we're a little younger. And the way Steve March really uses the Enneagram is he uses it under the idea of the Enneagram of individuation. Again, I'm not going to get into that. Reach out to me more for that. But especially when we're younger, say, could even be neonatal and stuff like that. But between the ages of 0 and 3, life hands us some confusing pain. Life keeps going on, more pain happens. This really ties into the Enneagram. At some point in an emotional wound, a childhood wound happens. Cool? We feel rejected, unmet needs. We feel too many expectations on us. Conflict doesn't feel right. We feel unsafe, whatever it is. This ultimately leads to a hurt part. This is kind of getting into the parts work. In IFS, it might be called an exiled part. In Aletheia, we just simply call it a hurt part. There's a hurt part. And this kind of really fits into the Gabor Mate stuff. It's basically unresolved emotional pain. Cool? Well, this unresolved emotional pain is there. Life goes on. Pain doesn't stop. And pretty soon our system says, F that. And we develop a protective part. A protective part is something to shield us from the discomfort. That could look like being good, pleasing, performing, etc. And then life goes on, we see a perceived threat. Okay. Anxiety, as Steve March calls it, the guardian at the gate is activated, kind of like a super emotion. Oop, something doesn't feel right about this. And what that anxiety is saying is, I think there might be some pain around that corner. Okay. I just have to move this out of the way here. I got to keep moving everybody over here. And then what happens? The ego dragon jumps in and says, hey, you know what? We don't want to feel that discomfort, right? Does this feel familiar so far? We don't want to feel that discomfort. So it jumps in. Maybe we please, maybe we jump in, maybe we do whatever. Well, life goes on, another perceived threat comes up. The ego dragon jumps in again, and we start developing a habit loop. Every time a perceived threat comes up, our ego dragon jumps up and we start wiring ourselves to jump towards that ego dragon. And then other hurts that could be potential. Well, that worked for over there. I'm going to jump in here again, the ego dragon says. And another perceived threat, the ego dragon jumps in again, and we start solidifying a pattern. We talked about early on, frozen process. That's what we're talking about here. We become frozen in a spot of getting away from discomfort. Well, I'm kind of curious. Anybody have any kind of insight, thinking ahead, jumping ahead? Does this seem beneficial? I mean, we've got these parts, they're helping us from discomfort, but what does this really do? Any thoughts, any ideas? Just going to open it up. Just jump in, throw your hand up, come off mute. Makes sense, right? Who wants to feel pain? But what, yeah, Judy.
Dave, there's something I want to, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thanks, Judy. Just to link it to the trauma science and the neurophysiology, is that the kind of crystallization or brain wiring of these habit loops also happens at a neurophysiological level, and the trauma and the threat stays in our body. And then the ego pattern prevents us from feeling what's going on in our body, and it prevents us from feeling our true feelings. So just wanted to make that link.
Yeah, love it. Thank you for that. Very, that's 100% what's happening here. We are never addressing the underlying stuff. Anxiety comes up, we move away, move away, move away. That's how we're wired. Yeah, Judy.
Oh, and I think actually building off of what was just shared and looking at this spiral, depending on the flavor of our ego dragon, strikes me as I have a tendency toward this corner of the Enneagram, or this corner of the Enneagram was where I was making the leap ahead that you invited us to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Don?
Yeah, go ahead, Deborah.
What I notice is that spiral, the thing is, it keeps happening. So every time there's an event that reminds the person about this pain, the spiral on the wall around the dragon or the ego just becomes harder and more impenetrable. And the real question for me always is, what unfreezes? And I have my own opinions on what unfreezes, but the freezing just gets harder and harder. Yeah.
Love it. Hold the idea with the unfreezing. I would love to ask and see if we're going to talk about that. And I'm open to whatever else helps the unfreezing. So the part of me that's like, ooh, I don't want to lose my thunder. The achiever in me is like, oh, I felt a little defensive there. So I'm just going to be with that a little bit. Let that part of me relax a little bit, Deborah. Cool?
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. What helps the unfreezing? Yeah, so let's jump forward. Cool? Yeah. So how do we help our inner CEO? How do we help our inner CEO unfreeze those patterns that are so rigid right now? Those patterns that we've learned, and I think we've all heard that word reify, right? Yeah. We develop really early on, and then through our life, things keep happening. And we learn other ways that these patterns help us. right? And then this become super habits, right? And these things just become so entrenched. So we've got this is going on inside of our inner CEO. Well, what we resist persists, Carl Jung. So as long as we keep moving away from what's underneath, the more we keep moving away from the fact that this pattern exists inside of us, it persists. Number one. So this is where, again, we talked about I think in when Ingrid and Renate first talked to me about this, it was on the heels of I think a post I put out about self-compassion. Okay. And the self-compassion 101 is really what is a great start point for all of this stuff. And number one is awareness that I have these patterns inside of me. So just borrowing off of Kristen Neff, number one is just becoming mindful that this pattern exists. And there's two ways we can become mindful of how that happens inside of us, multiple ways we can come up, but we're going to have to look at two different ways that this awareness is quite powerful. And perhaps coming to the realization and holding a little softness for this pattern. I mean, we can get really mad at ourselves that this pattern exists, or we can say, I guess this pattern's been trying to help me from feeling discomfort. And I'm just kind of curious as I say that, these patterns that are inside of us, what if they've just been trying to protect us from the hurt that lies underneath? What does that feel like as you take that approach? Yeah. It's a little different. And then asking ourselves, is it normal to have these patterns? Show of hands, is this normal or not normal? This is very normal. This is human, in fact. This is very human. This is humaning. And knowing that this pattern might live inside of someone that I'm close to, what would I want them to know about that pattern? Yeah. We'll have some time to kind of share on that in a second. Let's jump forward just a little bit more. This is going to be just a little bit of an Aletheia kind of background stuff that's really been key, I'd say, over the last 4 years of me in coming into this. And it's interesting with Aletheia, with the Enneagram, with where I am in my journey. Things are just starting to unfold to the point where this stuff is not just words in my head anymore, but it's like more of a lived experience. And the good news is I've got, God willing, another 45 years ahead of me of living this out. So I don't think this is ever going to end, which is kind of way. So quite often we're told, well, I need to effort out of it. I need to change it. If I've got a part of me that's people pleasing, I need to do the counter effect to that. I need to do the exact opposite. I need to effort. I need to effort. I need to do this. I need to do this. What do you guys notice just as I even say that? What's your level of being as I say, hey, you need to fix this. You need to do that. I need to give you another practice. I need to do this. I need to do that. Does that feel expansive, contractive? Like, what do you notice? Yeah.
Exhausting.
Exhausting. It is. It's just like that. And then what happens? Okay. Self-improvement, having to do something differently. Well, what does that say about what we see, how we see ourselves? Do we have everything we need, or are we missing? And then what happens if we don't improve? We try this, we do a New Year's resolution. It's an interesting time of year, whatever it is, January 25th. I had some New Year's resolutions. Some of them went well, some didn't. But the ones that didn't go well, what is that? What do I say about that? Especially in the past when things didn't go well, I would often beat myself up. Well, what the hell's wrong with you, Dave? Why can't you do this? The more we try to improve and effort out of things and it doesn't happen, well, we end up feeling even more deficient. Anybody kind of resonate with that? Yeah. So what if we allow whatever's here to be present, to emerge and be contacted? Unfoldment happens when we be with what's here. Rather than fight against that ego dragon that might be alive inside of us, what if we start with just turning towards it? Today, we're not going to get into the hurt parts that are underneath everything. We'll talk about it really quick. And at the same time, there's no need to hide anything that comes up here today. But what if whatever comes up simply just wants to come up so that it needs to do what it needs to do to move and flow? That was pretty wordy. Aletheia emphasizes letting be, letting unfold, allowing the emotional truths, for example, of those ego dragons to really be witnessed. allowing them to be contacted, to be understood, to be unfolded. And Alethea talks a lot about unfoldment rather than improving. Now, does that mean we never do anything? We just unfold and let things be? No, it's counter to that. Instead, it's letting things be, letting it unfold, being in the boardroom of your Yuko, listening to everything. But when everything feels said, felt, and contacted, unfolding what's really important, and then taking that right action moving forward. That right action that's right for your entire Yuko, that's values led, right? But it's left less about having to do something else because we're missing something. It's more about being in contact with what's here, even the felt sense of something's missing inside of us, letting that unfold and then moving forward from there. Cool? Yeah. And if you want some info on Alethea too as well, in terms of, there's just a lot. There's actually a free community that you can join with Alethea that, a lot of some general discussion is held. There's some Alethea unconferences that you can participate in. But if you go onto the info, there's a link in there. I think, Renate, if you can put that into the chat, it's probably the first link, should just say info on Alethea. If you can throw that into the chat, that would be great. We can always throw this stuff on at the very end. And I'm not a faculty of Alethea. I don't get anything from it. It's just there's a lot of really ties in nicely with the Enneagram community. I think the trauma sensitive approach that, I know everyone's like, Ingrid, you're so big about and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just the world needs a little bit more of letting be, letting unfold right now. Yeah. So moving forward, letting be, letting unfold versus efforting. So a little experience here again. If you want, hold out your left hand, okay? And inside your left hand, I want you to imagine there is some past discomfort there. Maybe even something that was challenging this last week. Imagine there's some hurt there, or, not to activate anyone, but just imagine in the middle of your hand, there's just an amalgamation of discomfort. And then just close that hand. And closing that hand is the ego dragon that's protecting that discomfort, okay? And hold that hand tight. And now I want you to effort to change it. And to effort to change it, I want you to take your other hand and force it open. Try to force that other hand open, the other one hold tight and just force that open. Maybe even whatever your ego dragon might say. It's like, oh, I don't want this, or whatever, just notice whatever's going on. Maybe you're yelling at that hand and just feel that. And just notice what it feels like in your body right now as you try to effort against it. And then again, I'm just going to invite you to shake that off. Actually shaking your hands and stuff like that. Why do zebras not have ulcers? It's pretty powerful, okay? Zebras shake it off after. Cool? And then hold your hand out again. And same thing. In the middle of it, there's some hurt. And the dragon really is clutching onto that tight. And instead, this time of trying to force it apart, take your other hand, come alongside it, and hold it. Actually help it to stay shut. Just notice what happens. Maybe even this hand saying to the other one, I'm here. I'm here with you. I'm just kind of curious. I'm just going to stop the share just for a second. What was that like for you? Yeah. What did you notice there?
Yeah, the left hand just spontaneously relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing anything or trying to effort or trying to relax, but it just naturally relaxed.
Yeah. So as you just let it be, in fact, even as you helped hold it, it just relaxed.
Yeah.
Who else? Any other? Yeah, Bernard.
Your first exercise with a CEO in the boardroom, I intellectualized that. This one I felt, which was nice, with a good feeling. Going from the head to a feeling.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else feel called to share? Yeah. The difference between efforting and letting be, letting unfold. The difference between intellectualizing and showing up with presence. Nothing wrong with intellectualizing. But what happens when we have even more of ourselves be available? What happens when we allow our presence to be here and hold what's here? Yeah. I'm going to share the screen again. And it should come right back into the same one. All good? Yeah. And that was a coach friend of mine out of Alicia that showed me that, just as I was talking about this experience of being able to present to everyone. And I was talking with the boardroom, and he said, "Hey Dave, have you ever tried this, this little experience, the tight fist and the holding the tight fist?" And I really resonate with Bernard, as you said, that is like the one was very intellectual, and it's good, it's imaginal, but that felt sense of really feeling this, it's pretty powerful. And I guess the question I'm asking is, what did you feel as you did this exercise? What was there? What did you notice? What did your being with feel like? What was that? If you're giving it some words, maybe even just holding on to that for a second. That's what we're really looking at here, is letting be, letting unfold. When we can shift from kind of fighting against to reacting to being with what arises in any given moment. What if all that's needed is more contact? Things arise, those things that arise want to be felt, they want to be understood and valued. And rather than reacting, being adverse or overly attached to something else, what if we just be with what's here? And I really love this Sylvia Burstein quote. I'm wondering if someone would like to read it out loud and really kind of feel into it, ham it up even. I don't know, but I'm just kind of curious. Would someone like to read this out loud? Yeah.
I'll read it.
Thanks, Deborah.
Mindfulness is the aware, balanced acceptance of the present experience. It isn't more complicated than that. It is being open to or receiving the present moment, pleasant or unpleasant, just as it is, without either clinging to it or rejecting it.
Thank you. And I'm just kind of curious, even these two exercises, the CEO in the boardroom. Anything coming up with anyone so far? Maybe just a couple of shares here too as well, building on this quote here. Pleasant or unpleasant? Yeah. Charming.
When we fight something, it gets much bigger. And what I like about this is really reminding us to, the more we accept, the more we keep things in proportion. So that's what came up for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other contributions? Any other voices? Yeah. We'll keep building on this. Yeah, Bernard.
It's, based on my Enneagram type and Ennea language, my virtue. And if I look at what the virtue is for my Enneagram type, it's just fits into place. So it's like shifting for me from vice to virtue.
What did you notice there, even as you did that, Bernard? Shifting from vice to virtue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. What if all that is required is to be in contact with what's here? And what happens when we're in contact with what's here from a trauma-safe point of view? Again, titration, pendulation, be with it a little bit from presence, little bite-sized pieces, staying within our window of tolerance, right? Yeah. Let's move on. What can this do? This kind of being with versus fighting against or pretending it's not here. I mean, we could just leave this hand like this and just leave it out there in space forever, the same experience, and just leave it be there. Pretend it doesn't exist. That doesn't seem to work either. This seems, again, to have that, oh, yeah, something there, a somethingness. Well, we help break the cycle of clinging or aversion and helps free Yuko from the delusion of the CEO can't handle that pain. Okay. Remember that anxiety perceived threat, guardian at the gate? Every time we move away, we're basically casting a vote that the CEO can't handle that discomfort. So that ego dragon becomes stronger and stronger and stronger because it doesn't believe we can handle the discomfort. But if we can start taking those little bite-sized chunks and being with the discomfort, perhaps that ego dragon that's been working so hard can learn that it can be with the discomfort. And the key thing here is, especially with IFS or parts work, is slow. The slower you go, the faster it kind of unfolds. And I don't want to use the word faster. That's some energy inside of me that, well, if I turn towards it and if I even right there, I'm going to press pause there. Did you notice my parts? And you notice how I fought against that part that was there? I brought up, there's a pattern in me that wants to go faster. And there was a part of me that jumped up and said, no, we don't go faster. But if I just actually relax and be with all that, presence comes back. Those parts just needed some contact because it is important to make progress in my mind. So if I pretend it's not, well, I'm deluding myself. The more we make contact with these protective parts, the more they felt witnessed and understood. The more they allow us to potentially be with the discomfort underneath that they've been holding on to for so long. And as we can be with that discomfort, developmental trauma, let's call it, that feeling of maybe I wasn't seen when I was young, the more I can be with that, and the more I can then circle back to the protective part that was trying to protect me from it, the more the protective part will see that, in fact, the CEO can be with situations that feel like discomfort from the past. And then the more the protective part can kind of unfold. Why does this matter? When these protective parts relax, the hurt parts can unfold. The protective parts can relax even more, which can unveil even more presence. The process here, again, there's another link that I put in here. It's a Steve March article too as well, but there's some really wonderful articles outside of this on memory reconsolidation. What we're really looking at, the science behind for the parts of you that are really interested in this is based on memory reconsolidation. So we've got these protective parts of us that feel that we can't be with discomfort. When we actually go through the process and we're with the discomfort and then circle back to the protective parts and check in with them, how was it for them as we were with the discomfort? It actually rewires our brains through something called memory reconsolidation, a very, very powerful process. So there's another link there too, if you're interested in reading about that. And it actually brings in a lot of the Aletheia method into this one paper. So again, it's kind of two birds with one stone on that one. Cool. Presence. We've talked about that too as well. We're going to get into something really interesting here, even more participative here in a minute. Just two more slides to kind of get through till that. And Aletheia really takes the stance of, what if nothing is missing? Again, coming back to that self-improvement paradigm, that self-improvement idea, thinking that we have to kind of effort our way forward. Well, what if nothing's missing? What if all that's really required is for us to be in contact with whatever's here? That might be, presence, being in contact with, a feeling of peace, calm, but it also might be in contact with that protective part of us that's trying to jump in for some reason, and even be in contact with the part of us that protective part is trying to protect us from. And the more that we can do that from presence, Internal family systems will talk about self energy, you know, curiosity, compassion, clarity, courage, things like that. Aletheia kind of broadens it out into more the almas idea of presence, and these really felt like these deep states of presence that we have inherently available to us. The more that we can kind of be what's here, the more unfolds. So a little graphic. You're 0 years old, you're born, and quite often you're filled with presence or self energy. Okay. Self, I say self-energizing life force. So we've got all these wonderful qualities of presence like strength, courage, curiosity, a passion. You know, a brand new newborn, when you look at that brand new newborn, they're just full of everything, aren't they? They are just pure. Well, what happens? Remember coming back to that circle? Life goes on. Pretty soon, we're self 1.0. This 1.0 is all the things we think we have to be to get contact in this world. Well, we go on a little bit larger. Our sense of self, our sense of authentic self starts shrinking away. We start hiding a little bit more about who we are so that we can be part of the tribe, part of the gang, part of society, right? To the point we get where, you know, quite often we're a little older and our actual sense of self, our authentic self, is completely gone or clouded by all these different constructions that we have of who we think we need to be in the world. Well, presence, self, even when it's kind of a little bit hidden, when we can tap back into that self, when we realize that I've become all these things I think I have to be rather than who I authentically am, through process, we can allow for more presence to well be present with more of what's here. And the more that we can kind of come into that, well, the more we can start reversing the cycle and unfolding. We can start finding even more and more of our authentic self, coming back to, you know, we talk about the virtues or the holy ideas in the Enneagram. The more we can start reclaiming what it is that's really ours, right? The more we can deconstruct the constructions that are there. Time goes on, we can do a little bit more and a little bit more. We start reclaiming more self to the point of, well, we come back to, I don't know. Okay. Can we ever get back to that pure form of self, that authentic us? Maybe some people can. But for me, the way I'm seeing it, it's just a continual journey of making these constructions, working with those and unfolding them, having a fewer and fewer constructions in the world that allows more and more of my presence or my self energy to emerge. Any thoughts on this slide here? Any thoughts on kind of what I provided here? Any questions? Curiosities? Concerns?
No, I love the way it's presented, Dave. I think, yeah, it's, you know, describing the journey that we're all on back to our true essence and stripping away, you know, all the ego defenses and the things that are not truly us. And yeah, it's really, really useful way of depicting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that too as well. Presence, self, essence, pretty much the same thing, pretty much interchangeable. Yeah.
Dave, I just want to add something. I mean, I love the flow of it. It gives me a lot of hope just watching that arrow flow over. But I also found in myself and others that I work with is sometimes they're going in that direction and then something makes them terribly fearful, or in my case, and I just go backwards. Instead of continuing. And I think it's the ongoing mindfulness and spiritual practice that keeps you going forward, because we will go back, in my experience. It's not always like alert, the light bulb's on.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Deborah. Yeah. Anybody else feel that way? Make those steps forward. And then it's kind of like a, yeah. Sometimes that might even be from over-efforting, right? But very natural. Sometimes it has to get a little darker before it gets lighter. And can we be with that as it is too as well? Yeah. Thanks for that. I'll come back to the share here. Yeah, I've got parts of me that say, hey, Dave, you know what? You don't know how to use sharing on Zoom very well, but I'm doing very well. So I'm being with that part right now. And it was interesting because I had this really weird thing going on with my computer. And I finally figured it out. And that one I did have to effort for a little bit. But it was also because I relaxed into saying, there's something weird going on here, and took a step back. So yeah, I'm actually quite pleased that I'm able to kind of shift between the turning the share off and on. So yeah, I said not share that out loud. I don't know why, but anyways, it's just my quirky way. So let's get into a little bit more. There's a lot of stuff here. It can be like a little overwhelming, like everything can, right? One thing that's really interesting is, what if there's a start point? What if there's kind of a natural start point that we have built into us that we can start unfolding even more into our kind of authentic being, getting a little bit more of that essence, capturing that, deconstructing a little bit more of the pressure, I'd say, some of these ego dragons have. And it's really curiosity and the healing bridge of compassion. So here, you know, the roots, the word compassion, basically to suffer with, right? And really it means the capacity to be with suffering exactly as it is. And this really kind of gets into that letting be, letting unfold. And can we be with the emotional truth of what's here, allowing it to be witnessed, so that underneath whatever's there, it can heal and unfold. And just one more little experience here. If you want, you can close your eyes again. But compassion, from a presence point of view, like almost from a texture, like a quality of presence called compassion. You can imagine compassion as like a green emerald kind of healing salve. You can even just imagine just sitting here and little green raindrops falling down all around you. And these raindrops actually have the ability to flow through you. And these little green raindrops have the feeling of kind of a nice, gentle, calming, soothing green salve. And just for a moment here, allowing those green drops to flow down through you and contacting whatever needs to be contacted in you right now. Maybe parts that are concerned, maybe parts that are trying to figure it out. With this green compassion, these little raindrops just kind of flow through us, around us, and just bring in this kind of, yeah, being with energy. Just noticing that. Yeah, what was that like, just to feel that energy? Again, like a little bit later on in Alethea, we get into these qualities of presence and be with these ego dragons that might be kind of hiding us from them right now, and helping them unfold, and noticing as they unfold these qualities of presence that are underneath them. I'll touch on that really briefly, but that is kind of the work that I'm working on right now, is unfolding these qualities of presence. A question here. And I don't quite know how to set this exercise up, so I'll just ask the question. If you saw somebody on the street and you were kind of seeing them from a little bit of a distance, and it looked like they were struggling with something. What arises first in you? Would it be curiosity or compassion? I'm curious. Which one feels more authentic, curiosity or compassion? I'm just going to put both of those questions out there right now. Do you lead with curiosity? Do you lead with compassion? Just a general discussion here. Yeah.
For me, it's definitely
Charming.
curiosity.
Curiosity. Yeah. Tell me about that. What does curiosity feel like to you? What's the felt sense of curiosity?
Well, I'm always wanting to understand the why, you know, what's going on, and trying to get deeper, and so it's definitely more what's going on, that kind of energy that drives me. And then
Yeah.
the compassion perhaps comes later, but it's definitely curiosity to start.
Yeah. Thanks. And again, there's no right, no wrong. Just you're noticing that curiosity almost feels like a natural. It's like, yeah, what's going on? And then once you are with someone, imagine there's that person on the street there or whatever that's kind of suffering. You went on, you went up to them and just asked what's going on. And they said, hey, you know what? I can't find my dog. What do you notice then?
Then compassion would come.
Yeah. Who else? What are you noticing here?
Xanthi?
I would want to run and say, are you okay first? I would have compassion first, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Xanthi.
Renate.
Thanks, Renata. Mine would be curiosity, but not necessarily from a positive perspective. Mine would be a case of, are you doing something wrong? What is happening here? I'm feeling unsafe, and that's all for me Enneagram related. I'm feeling unsafe. Are you doing something wrong? Are you, from more from a danger perspective than a positive curiosity perspective, and then compassion and curiosity thereafter. But if you lost your dog, how did your dog get loose in the first place? It would be a shame, but how did your dog get loose in the first place? So like, what's the problem? How do we fix the problem? So the original problem. Yeah, so that would be my very different perspective.
Yeah. Well, and your very different perspective is really trying to provide something valuable to you, isn't it? Yeah. And maybe even just getting curious about your different perspective. From that spot of
Absolutely.
curiosity. Yeah. What happens as you get curious? Yeah. What do you notice? I'm just curious. I notice a smile here right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I just smile. I smile when I say stuff like that. When some stuff like that comes up, because it's like, oh, is that your Enneagram ego speaking? Just so your type. That is so your type. And then I just smile, and then I learn and grow from the experience.
Yeah. Even that feeling of that smile, turning that smile towards your experience, it felt like it had some kind of energy that shifted something in you as you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I see it.
I see it. Wonderful. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Renata, were you going to say something too?
I was unmuted just to invite those who raised their hands, but I'm thinking about, when you said if you see somebody struggling in the street, in South Africa, every day, all day, as we drive around, we see people struggling in the street at every traffic light and every corner. And for me, compassion happens first without question. My heart just breaks all day long as I drive around. I cannot imagine how hard it must be to be homeless and hungry. And it just breaks my heart. And then curiosity would come afterwards, wondering, where do you go home to? Has anybody stopped to give you money today? Just how did you end up in this situation? So Yeah, I think for sure my heart is moved first. But I'm curious about why you're asking, what's behind the question, Dave?
I don't know really. I think compassion and curiosity kind of are so intermingled. And I think that kind of compassionate curiosity, you know, turning towards whatever is here, even the parts of us that sometimes we might get frustrated with, right? I think the more that we can be curious about what's going on, it seems to kind of bring up even more compassion, especially when we really understand them. And I think that's kind of the key with this unfoldment paradigm, is the more that we can be with what's here, the more, and we really listen, especially from presence, when we notice that compassionate kind of side of presence without the need to jump in to fix, without the need to make it different. When we really just get curious and bring that beginner's mind to it, that compassion seems to kind of just get bigger and bigger. And the bigger that compassion gets, the more it creates a holding space that allows even more unfoldment. How does that feel? Yeah. I keep asking that question. How does that feel? What is that energy like? You know, what do you notice as more compassion comes into your system? Right. Yeah. Compassion has been so powerful for me in my journey. You know, I have lots of parts, lots of stories. And the more I can just be with what's here, with that compassion, the more work I can do, the more love is unfolded. And that leads to even more compassion, more curiosity. It's pretty powerful. So, any final thoughts before I shift to the next slide? There's parts of me that are getting excited to show the next stuff. Let's jump forward. So, this is going to be, we'll see how many of these we do. It's 8:30. We're probably going to spend about 15 minutes here kind of playing with a couple of EgoDragons, maybe doing a little role playing out loud. I didn't think we'd get to kind of the breakout room exercises, which is perfectly fine. I do have some stuff to kind of circle back to, but would you guys like to meet some EgoDragons? Yeah, awesome. So this is meant to be extremely experiential. There's many patterns, many combinations. I can't remember who it is, but there's one Enneagram guy. He's a habit guy too as well. Someone might remember his name, and he talks about how these 9 patterns are alive inside of us. And he actually has the Enneagram, so it's turned upside down. So he looks at it from a reverse point of view in terms of the symbol. But that's not what I remember about him. He just talks about how these different dragons are all alive inside of us. I think that's so true. There's so many dragons alive inside of us, especially if you get into the Enneagram of individuation, which Steve March talks about how these different points on the Enneagram really are related to kind of Margaret Mulder's work and individuation and stuff like that. But all that stuff is kind of nothing as compared to what if we can just understand each of these EgoDragons is a dedicated worker that's inside, set up to protect and support the CEO and UCO in general. Okay, so remember UCO, all those department heads around the table, the CEO walking in. And as we meet these dragons, I'm going to invite you to notice them from a little distance. Maybe not so much that they're inside of you, but let's just get a little compassionate distance and just noticing them as distinct entities. Okay, just really noticing them as distinct entities. What's it like for them? And a question you might take with you as you go through this is, what do you notice in you? What do you notice in you as you notice them? Perhaps catching their eyes, their essence. When these EgoDragons we're going to get into are working at full effort. So it's almost like you're going to watch a little movie of them. Okay. It's not a movie, it's a still. Okay. And a little monologue. But yeah, just kind of noticing them. So just kind of keep that, and we'll just have some interaction. We'll see how far we go. We'll try to get through all 9 dragons, have a little kind of talk, but it just depends on how much we kind of explore and play together. So Action center dragons. Okay. There's this dragon here. Maybe just notice him, her, this dragon here, this dragon here. Are your eyes drawn to any of the dragons? Maybe just take a look at them. And just imagine these dragons working at like a maximum effort inside the CEO. And I'll read this first one because it really resonates with me. And then I'm going to ask other people to read the other ones if you feel comfortable too. So this little black dragon here, I'm the challenger. My job is to protect the CEO by staying strong and in control. Think of me as the bouncer of this operation if life gets sketchy. I'm there to take charge and make sure when no one messes with us. I jump in to keep vulnerability out of the equation because honestly, looking weak, it's not an option. My biggest fear, that we'll end up powerless or overpowered. No thanks. And just imagine this little dragon here, okay? Working overtime inside of that CEO. Imagine watching a movie and just seeing this guy, his biggest fear, he's really worried that he's going to become overpowered or that he's powerless. He's out of control. How do you feel towards this guy? Just noticing right now, seeing how hard he's working. What are you noticing? What comes up for you? Yeah. How do you feel towards him?
I feel sorry for him because he's trying so hard and it must be so tiring.
Yeah. And maybe just take a moment and let him know that. It must be so tiring for you. Maybe even ask him if it's tiring. See what he says. Yeah. Anyone else? What are you noticing towards him? What comes up as you look at him? How do you feel towards this little dragon working so hard here? Yeah. Let's just go a little further then. Who'd like to read this one? Anybody want to volunteer?
I can volunteer.
Sure, Rob.
So I'm the peacemaker, and my job is to protect the CEO by keeping the peace and avoiding conflict. You can think of me as the office Zen master, except my version of peace sometimes involves hiding under the desk when things get tense. I work hard to keep everyone calm, even if it means going onto autopilot. And my biggest fear, that chaos will erupt and I'll potentially lose the peace I've carefully created over here.
Yeah, I'm just noticing when this dragon just really working hard, protecting that little candle, has that bubble built around them, right? How do you feel towards that dragon right now, Rob, seeing him out there? I'm curious.
Yeah, I want to put my arm around him and let him know that he can letting know that he can sit back for a bit. He can sit back for a bit and allow friction. He can sit back and allow debate and difference of opinion.
You open to a quick question here, Rob?
Yeah, sure.
Imagine now you do see that dragon, he's right in front of you, and you let him know that. You might even say something, hey, I'm here with you as we do this. You put your arm around him. What happens inside you right now in this moment?
I'm feeling a kind of integration. Yeah. It's like a piece of a jigsaw fitting into place, or there are things knitting together. That's what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Maybe even just thank that dragon for being there and letting him be contacted by you right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, little dragon.
Mhm. Yeah. We'll read one more and then we'll just talk about this quick. Who'd like to read the next one here? So the one with the magnifying glass. Who feels called to read them?
Do we have an Enneagram 1 in the house?
Yeah.
I think Irene, but I think she's not there at the moment. Irene, are you there?
I am. Go on then, I'll do it.
Thank you.
I am the perfectionist, and my job is to protect the CEO by ensuring everything is done perfectly. Picture me as the editor who proofreads emails for typos at 2 a.m. Except it's not just typos, it's everything. I strive to meet impossible standards because mistakes, no way. My biggest fear? That will be seen as defective, messy, or just plain not good enough.
Thank you for reading that, Irene. And I'm just kind of curious if you're open to a question.
Yeah.
You know, what do you notice just as you see that dragon? That experience, that's that experience of that dragon. That's their kind of truth. That's what it's like for them. These are again vignettes, right? But yeah, how do you feel towards this dragon right now?
Well, interestingly, it was the dragon that I was attracted to. So that's funny. When you put the three of them up. Wow, loads of compassion. So that's what I am offering compassion to myself and to the dragon. And even though there are elements of this that aren't describing me, I'd be saying to somebody else that they might need to do that. That's my push on Enneagram. That's where I am. I'm about telling the world that they need to do it right. And my learning was maybe I need to bring a little bit more of that into myself rather than telling everybody else. But yeah, lots of compassion, which was what I led with earlier. So
yeah. And I'm just kind of curious, what happens to that little dragon that you see on the screen here right now? What happens as you send that compassion towards that dragon right now, Irene?
Well, they put down the magnifying glass because and it's not got to be there all the time. It's not like physically attached to their hand. It's a hand that could be used for some other much more life affirming things. And two hands are better than one.
Yeah. And if it felt right, you might just contact that dragon and say, yeah, thanks for showing me yourself. And if you're feeling a little bit more connected to it, just let it know that, hey, I'm feeling a little bit more connected to you right now, and asking it if it feels a little bit more connected to you, Irene.
Yeah, sending it as much compassion as I can.
Love it. Yeah. Should we move on? Is this beneficial just to kind of go through these one-on-one? Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And as we go through it, you just contact however this energy is showing up in you. I have all these energies showing up in me at different levels, of course, but yeah, it's interesting. And there's a part of me that's jumping in right now, the caretaker part, that just wants to say, hey, these descriptions, I would love anyone's feedback on them. I do ultimately want to have just some really brief descriptions like this in terms of a book that I'm writing right now. But these are just very general generalizations. And you will get these slides after these ones. So if you want them, you'll be able to kind of get these with some home study. But I'm more than happy to talk about this after. The main thing is just turning towards these with that curiosity, that compassion. So yeah. So this time on this one, let's change it up a little bit. I'm going to call an audible. We're going to do the same thing, but just maybe notice where one of these might really resonate with you. Okay. And then we'll just kind of do the same sort of thing, but we'll just notice how this kind of shows up maybe in an aspect of your life, right? And we'll just be really curious with it and see what happens. Does that work? Yeah, so we're going to look at the feeling center in dragons now. Now we're going to feel. But we've been doing a heck of a lot of feeling so far, so really appreciate everyone kind of leading into this. So we've got this dragon. Just notice that dragon. Just feel their emotional truth right now. We've got that dragon. Just feel them. And this dragon. This one makes me a bit teary, but that's okay. And you can see here, the feeling center, it might be a little clearer which one's which. We'll start with this one. If anyone kind of feels called to share from that dragon inside of them that feels like that pattern too, feel free. If not, I'll read them. Yeah.
Let's have an Enneagram 2 read this one.
I would love to. Yeah, would like to read that.
Renate, am I the only Enneagram 2?
Not sure.
If there's someone else who is, they can read because I have read.
No, I think it's up to you, Debs.
Okay. I'm the helper. My job is to protect the CEO by making sure everyone loves and needs us. Think of me as the world's most overachieving host, ready with snacks, blankets, and probably a 5-step plan for your happiness. I step in to meet everyone's needs because I believe our worth depends on it. My fear that if I stop helping, I'll be seen as unlovable or not needed, and we can't have that.
Yeah, Deborah, I'm just kind of curious what you notice with that as you look at the dragon, you read that, or whatever your expression of your dragon's being is, their truth is. Yeah.
I think the first thing that I noticed was I looked at all those balls in the bowl, and I think I've become so aware of this part, and I just looked at it and I thought, I haven't got as many. I'm trying to have less of those balls in the bowl these days. But yeah, just that overachieving host, I just love that concept because, you know, just wanting to make sure everybody's okay all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. What happens as you look at her, look at that dragon's eyes there?
I'm looking more at her smile
Yeah.
than at her eyes. Her smile is almost a bit false. You know, she's putting that smile on because that's the right thing to do, to be so helpful. But in the eyes, I think she's quite lost, this dragon. I think 2s are very lost. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe if you wanted to, even in this moment, you could ask this dragon what they most want you to know about how it is for them right now.
Just say that question again, what I want them to know.
You can just ask them something like, how is it for you? So you're asking the dragon as they're sitting there, just this dragon, how is it for them?
How is it for you? Yeah.
What do you notice as you ask that question? What do they say? What does it feel like? How do you make contact with this dragon?
I think the dragon would answer to just say, well, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I also know that that bowl is heavy.
Yeah.
But they won't admit it.
They won't admit it. You can feel that. You can feel the heaviness. And
Yeah.
Can you just
because they keep the smile on their face. Yeah. And they won't tell you. The other thing I notice is there's a little heart, but it's not their heart and their feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that. And what do you notice inside just as you feel all this, Deborah?
I think I notice some unfreezing and some compassion. Yeah.
There's something you shared even at the beginning, noticing that maybe I'm not holding quite as many of these, and maybe even just taking that moment of celebration together, right?
Yeah.
We are unfreezing, maybe,
Yeah.
and being with that dragon. Yeah.
Mm.
I appreciate your playing along, Deborah.
Thank you.
Renata, is there any volunteers that would read this one?
I could volunteer.
Sure.
I'm the achiever, and my job is to protect the CEO by ensuring we are seen as successful and valuable. I'm the one who signs us up for every project and ensures we're the star of the show. If it's not a win, it's not worth it. My motto: if you're not first, you're last. My biggest fear: failing or being seen as unimportant, because who are we if we're not achieving?
Just even taking a moment to just feel that dragon's essence. Not so much its essence, but its effort. Let me change the word. Its essence is there too. Feel that effort. Yeah. Yeah. We'll move on to the next one. Just feeling all this stuff. And looking at the time, we might get through this all. I'll read this one. Because I am the individualist. The part of me, this dragon inside of me, is the individualist. His job is to protect me by making sure we're seen as unique and authentic. He's the brooding poet of the group, searching for the deeper meaning and making sure we stand out from the crowd. When I feel something's missing, I can't help pull us into longing or sadness. My worst fear, being ordinary, invisible, or just like everyone else, I can't even. I can see all that dragon's different colors and how hard they're trying to be seen. It's not quite happening. I can really feel towards him, see his eyes, and notice what he's looking towards. And I see him so clearly now. He still springs into action because that's important. I see that, and I can be with him as he is. And that feels nice. I'm going to really quickly do the next 3 slides just to introduce them. I'm going to put the descriptions up there. And just to change this one up a little bit, I'm just going to ask you to notice whatever dragon's there. Read a description that kind of you're pulled to. And maybe just some general discussion in terms of how this might resonate, how you feel towards them. These are the thinking center dragons. Yeah. Yeah, and whenever you're ready to share something, whether you're reading it all or not, maybe just noticing what you notice on this one. I very much associate with all 3 of these, actually. That is what I really like about the IEQ9 assessment too, as well, or any assessment that kind of shows kind of where these all might be in terms of activation in our system. But the pattern 7, that was so much my life in addiction, reaching for that extra piece of cake before I even took a nibble of the first one. Yeah. I'm kind of curious. Did anybody want to share anything from this?
Yeah. I can share about, I'm a 7, so I love the colorful dragon and what's written, because it's true. The idea of being trapped in pain is just, I'm always running away from things that are painful and trying to keep busy and happy and, abundant. It's kind of, you're chasing all the time, right? It's just never enough. So it resonates with me, and I love that dragon.
Thanks for sharing. I'm curious if anyone resonates with the pattern 6 or the pattern 5 here, the image or the words. Yeah. Something about the 6's list. List. Gotta keep adding to the list, or the backpack, being ready. The 6 I worked with quite a bit of time just to get the eyes to as well. Not quite sure about the outside, not quite sure about the inside. Just not quite sure. Yeah. And again, I'll send these slides out to whoever's interested, or the, there's, again, you can sign up and they'll have these slides in there with the descriptions. And again, I'm more than open to any kind of feedback or communication on them. So moving forward, just inviting a closer look. This, again, I'm not going to worry about this. This is kind of going to be in the exercise moving forward. And I want to make sure I save enough time. We're always very mindful of time. So we've got about 10 minutes left here. So I'm going to jump ahead. This is an exercise, a home practice that I put into there. It will be again in the thing that you download if you want. And it's kind of a light version of parts work, I guess you could say, getting to know the protective parts of yourself to start with, right? And it'll talk about noticing the dragon and how they might show up. For some people, we might hear the dragon speak to us. For some people, it might be a felt sense. It could be a sensation in or around your body. So if anyone's used to IFS, this will feel somewhat familiar or quite familiar. And then talking about unfolding, can I simply be with what is as it is, allowing it to kind of unfold? Yeah. And again, this is just kind of an extension of the home practice. What I wanted to jump towards here is just moving forward, an invitation to unfolding. So I'm just kind of curious as we kind of start pulling this towards a conclusion. What's unfolded for you today? I'm just going to go through this slide. And what's one way you might be able to invite more presence to be with whatever dragons are inside of you to help you and your leadership as the CEO of Yuko? How might you further connect with your dragons? And just kind of bringing in this idea that unfolding isn't necessarily a destination, kind of like that one graphic that we showed with the self and the numbers. It's more of just a continual process of unfolding. Yeah. So with that, I think I'm going to share and then just see if we can just have some open discussion about maybe what's unfolded for you today, and this idea that, how might you take this moving forward? Yeah. So with that being said, I'm just coming back to the main room here, and just a general question: what's unfolded for you today? How was this? How was just the idea of being with rather than efforting past beneficial to you, or was it? How might you take this moving forward? How does this tie in with the Enneagram? So just general discussion. Yeah. Does that work? Yeah. Cool.
Thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the idea that I'm the CEO of myself and that I must come in more calmly and then address each area. I really enjoyed that. And I've really come away with a lot. I love the dragons. I'm a 7, so I'm the party animal.
Nice.
Thank you. I feel content with all the information.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. We can, Ingrid.
Froze for a bit. I really like the way you presented the complex trauma piece around chronic re-traumatization and it being micro traumas again and again, not massive events necessarily, but continuously suffering and needing to develop some resistances and strategies to not feel, and normalizing that, completely normalizing it, that this is what we do, this is how we develop a particular defensive stance, and that being a bridge. It was a very good schematic to illustrate that process.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sometimes it can feel, it was a good process even for me to write the schematic, to do it, because the process, it was interesting. My parts were really activated at the beginning of January about how do I present something that my pattern 3 energy was showing up that would be of value, right? And doing the actual process of being with my dragons and kind of working through that and slowing down into creating the presentation as a way of integrating some of the learning that I've been bringing on board and really feeling into it. That graphic was something that was really beneficial for me to actually build Ingrid. So I appreciate you kind of bringing that in. And I think now that that's integrated into my system, my parts actually feel even more seen and understood. You know, it's kind of like my system's like, see, Dave, that's what's going on. Right? Which was kind of nice. Yeah. Yeah. Who else? Feel free just to come off mute and yeah.
Debs, did you want to share?
Not now.
Oh, because you came off mute. I found it really useful, Dave, that the dragons were cute. So much easier to have compassion for this little cutie that thinks they're doing such an important, strong, big job. So, yeah, I really appreciated that. It reminded me when my daughter was 1 and 2 and we had the DVD Shrek. And every time the dragon came on, she'd scream and run away. And you know, eventually had to be coaxed. Like, don't worry, just wait a little longer and you'll see that it's actually a pretty pink lady dragon who's sweet. And I feel like that's our journey of discovery. And I also found it really helpful, that process from pulling the hand to helping it stay closed. You know, that felt so comforting and supportive. And like I'm in my own court. You know, and if you need to protect it, then go right ahead and I'll even help you do that kind of thing. So found those that as a metaphor really useful. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There's a reason I could have drew the dragons as, you know, kind of adult dragons, but there was another reason. It made them cute for sure, more approachable. But why young dragons? Anyone have, well, why young?
Because these patterns are formed when we're quite young, right? And then
Yeah.
they just solidify. If you go back to your chart, it's about getting frozen, but it's really coming from quite a young age.
Very good. Very, very insightful. I mean, it's the hurt parts are young, and then the parentified child inside of us is quite young. So really drawing them in that young way, even as I was having them drawn and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, this allows me to kind of really see that. We talk about the inner child. These are our inner children, right? It just felt much more approachable. And that's really my goal here, is to make this just a little bit more approachable and invoke compassion. Kind of like, it's not about doing compassion, but it's like, can you invoke it? Like this exercise or whatever, or just seeing the dragon. So thanks for that, Charmaine. Yeah. Yeah, a couple more thoughts before I hand it back over to Renate and Ingrid just for closing. Yeah. I sure appreciate all you being here today. That was great and fun, and I had to be with my dragons, but you were all very safe to create the shared container of being with my dragons today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Claire, I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and I was really interested in that concept right from the beginning, which you reinforced with the hand exercise of being with. And actually, the way you presented the dragons, you know, often we look at some of the not so good parts of our type, and these dragons were just so cute, and the intentions were so pure to just help the CEO co. And to realize that you can draw on them in the healthy way. And then the other thing was just realizing how much of all the others I have, how some of them are not using, and I need to. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious just if people do get the exercise, even ways to expand on the exercise. You could have an active participation in the book that I'm kind of putting together on this right now, in terms of ways to actively help people get to know, just from a general point of view, these different dragons that exist. And I would love to expand on the description just a little bit more of the dragons to make it a little bit more, a little bit bigger, but at the same time, very bite-sized. Because there is so much richness with the Enneagram. For me, I loved it. I absorbed a lot of it, but then it almost felt like it was pushing me away at some point, because it is so big too as well. So I just want things to be, that's my goal with, is kind of create a felt sense of a start point for people. Curiosity to pull them in, and maybe even that compassion towards the fact that there is a lot here, and this is a lifetime to lean into, right? It's very big in the recovery world. Yeah, Ingrid. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. Carry on, please, with the recovery world.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in the recovery world, quite often what happens is guys will get into the work, they'll be like, holy crap, you mean recovery isn't a destination? We noun it. And I'm toying with the idea of, rather than recovery, uncovery. It's a continual uncovery of our essence, right? So much like this work, I just want to have an entry point, something super light, fun, simple, just to start. And wherever a person starts, Russ Hudson, I love his take too. He says, you can spend your entire life just being with one point of here, but at the same time, don't forget about all this other stuff, right? So, yeah. I've thoroughly enjoyed presenting. Ingrid, Renate, I thoroughly enjoyed being pushed a little bit to present, because that actually was super beneficial, the exercise to me, just preparing the stuff. And being with all my parts as I did that.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, Dave. Just for everybody, I have pasted information in the chat, and that will go out also, all of that and some more, I believe, in the email with the recording, which will hopefully go out soon. I just need to edit out whatever was being videoed of me while you were all in the breakout rooms. And just, if anybody's watching this recording who wasn't present live, I'm aware that there are some people whose email addresses are definitely in the email list who didn't get the new format of the email, which is, I've started sending it from MailChimp. So if anybody didn't get the emails, please look in your spam folders and junk folders and let me know if you're not getting them, because there's a whole lot of people who didn't get them, and I've checked now, they are on the mailing list. So you would have probably had a much larger audience, Dave, if it wasn't for whatever it is that I haven't quite figured out in MailChimp yet.
It's all good. And for any audience that's watching this after, even if I want to present on this again, no problem, but please reach out. This is something that, I'm very passionate about and would love to talk to anyone about it. So.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I'm going to sign off right now because it's grandfather duty time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.